consumers and seniors. And within our agency, we have a healthcare marketing practice called DM3 Healthcare, and this webinar today is brought to you by DM3 Healthcare.
And I'm Scott Cohen. I'm responsible for digital strategy and development here at the firm, and particularly focused in the healthcare segment. I have a background in traditional marketing, and a couple of years ago got really immersed in digital marketing and innovation for fear that I was going to become a dinosaur in my career if I didn't get to know this stuff. So I spent a lot of time learning about SEO and social media marketing, content development, and we're very excited to share with you today some of the things that we've learned through experience with our clients as well as just the research that we've done. So a couple of housekeeping details before we get started. You will all receive as a participant in the webinar today a website lead generation guide, and it's developed in checklist fashion so that you can use this tool to go through your website and look for some of the key points that we're talking about today and maybe some additional others, and what you can do to make improvements right now to increase your online enrollments for the upcoming AAP season. So that will be our gift to you for attending today, and we'll send that out via email from me at the conclusion sometime before the end of the day. We're also offering a complimentary online marketing assessment report. If you'd like to take a little deeper dive and like some assistance in looking at areas of your website and digital presence that can be better optimized for the fall season, we'd be happy to provide you a complimentary assessment report of the things that can be done and changes. And if you will contact us via email, or contact information is going to be shown at the end of the webinar, and we'll also send that in the leave behind material. And then finally, regarding questions, if you have questions as we go, you can ask them in the window of the webinar itself, and we'll try to pay close attention to who's asking questions and what the questions are, or we'll have a question and answer session at the end of the webinar. And finally, the slides and the recording of today's webinar will be made available at the end of the week, and we'll send out another email informing you where you can go and receive the material. So today what we want to do is real quickly just look at some relevant internet trends that apply to reaching baby boomers, the aging baby boomers who are going to be retiring and entering the Medicare Advantage market, as well as existing seniors. And so talking about internet trends that are relevant to that market. Talk about a process for improvement and best practices in website usability, design, and digital marketing. And then some practical things you can do right now is how we're going to wrap up the webinar this afternoon. So let's talk about current relevant internet trends. And before we do that, we want to, as Pam said, we always start with the end in mind. And so what we want to do in terms of how we're working with the folks that we're working with and what we'd like to accomplish with you today is help you think about what are your goals, what are you trying to accomplish with your website in the first place, and ultimately what we think a person's entire digital marketing presence should be designed to do is to increase visitors to the website, to generate more leads, people that raise their hand and say, yes, I'm interested in information. I may not be interested in buying today, but you could sign me up for an email newsletter, or you can send me interesting content or offers. But ultimately, it's got to end up in creating more enrollments for you in the long run. And so there's some questions that you may want to ask in this process of determining, kind of what your goals are. The first thing is you want to find out how many new members do we want to acquire online in the first place. Do we even have a defined goal for what we're trying to get our website to do in terms of acquisition? What's our current online user experience? And is our current online user experience able to deliver that? Is it hard to find stuff in our website? Do we have any relevant, useful content on our site that can help people decide, that our plan is the best plan for them? What about our competition? What are they doing? What can we learn from them? Where are their weaknesses, or where are they really strong against us, where we need to shore up our efforts? And then ultimately, what needs to change to increase conversions on our site? And there's some real compelling reasons for doing this. if you just look at, and this is an example, not necessarily saying that the traffic on your sites would be this, but typically a small to medium-sized business is going to have about, in the annual enrollment period, about 30,000 or it'd be 20,000 visitors per month, 60,000 over the October to December time period, and you might convert 1% of those to leads. People that say, I'd like more information, or, you know, give me some, here's my lead information, you can contact me. And out of that, maybe about 173 of them would convert. And if we could just double that, if we could increase the amount of people that sign up as leads by doubling it from 1% to 2%, you could add $288,000 in incremental value to the online marketing efforts by just making that change. So you'd get more leads and more conversions as a result with the same amount of web traffic. So we're not talking about a lot of additional conversions needed to deliver tremendous value. Over the long haul, from a strategic perspective, over the next 10 years, the General Accounting Office was reported in Bloomberg last week that they're estimating that Medicare Advantage enrollments will increase by 50% in just the next 10 years. So the market is going to go from $145 billion to $250 billion. So there's a substantial amount of money at stake here as more and more baby boomers are entering retirement ages and signing up for Medicare and Medicare Advantage programs. And we'd like to help your company be positioned to get your unfair share of that incremental business. So clearly, the future digital success really depends on engaging digitally savvy baby boomers. Baby boomers right now are used to using their computers, smartphones, tablets, and so as they go into retirement planning and look for Medicare and healthcare options, they're going to be going online, looking for answers, asking questions, and we want to basically be found when people are looking for us. Well, what about the current crop of seniors, those that are 65 and older? Are they currently online, or is that just, are they technophobes and they're afraid, you know, of the internet? Well, the answer, surprisingly, is yes. There's a lot of senior adults that are online. Over half of them, 21 million adults 65 and older are online. And not only are they online, but they're highly engaged in digital activities like watching digital video or using social networks. So it's close to 70% for both of those factors. So these aren't folks that are afraid to be online at all. They're just as engaged as anybody else with a variety of online activities. In terms of how they're using search engines, 82% of seniors online use a search engine to gather information on a topic of interest. So that's probably the person's first stop when they start looking for answers to problems that they're having, when they're asking questions, is they're going to go ask Google. And we say Google a lot because they have 67% of the share of the search market. Bing has 17%. But there's a number of different search engines, but Google becomes kind of the main horse that we're looking to optimize against. So 82% of seniors are looking on there for answers to questions. And what are they looking for? Well, they're looking for topics that range from Medicare, retirement planning, wealth management, leisure activities, and this word cloud shows in relationship to the size of the words kind of the level of search that's occurring around those particular topics. And in terms of how you drive value then for the audience when they are looking, you want to provide them answers to their questions and help solve their problems. 78% are using it to easily access information, search. These are seniors and boomers. They want to use the internet to keep up to date on political and policy issues. And 33% of them view the internet as their most trusted source for news and information. In terms of online content, they're using video, as we talked about earlier, but they're also taking action after they watch a video. So 3 in 4 of them are taking some kind of action after they watch a video, and that might be something you want to consider, particularly in an area where it's very complicated, like Medicare Advantage, and people don't understand, what do I need to do to sign up? What are the different plan options? What are my options? You can really quickly explain things around this to people in videos without them having to pour through a lot of text. And you can see when they're watching videos, they're then searching for more information, they're clicking through to a link that they were interested in, or they're even forwarding the video to friends. And really, online content is exploding in all its forms. You can see here, this was released recently by Mary Meeker, who's an analyst, a very famous analyst in internet trends with Kleiner Perkins. And she's basically showing that over the last 5-6 years that the internet sharing has exploded by up to 9 times in terms of content, all kinds of digital content and information. So really right now, where we're at is we're sharing a lot of photos, and there's been explosive growth in that, but it's still in the early stages, so there's a lot of room for growth there. Video is ramping up fast. Next comes sound and music, and then from that will emerge this whole explosion of data about what we're doing online, what we're sharing online, and seniors and boomers are participating in this. When you look at social networking sites, they're highly engaged and involved in that. 71% of boomers are involved in social networks every day, 59% of 65 and older adults. So there's not much of a difference. And Facebook is the #1 social networking site on par with the general population. Google Plus is coming up, Twitter, LinkedIn. And of course, you know, a lot of people say that, well, we've done Facebook and it doesn't really convert for us, it doesn't work for us. And I would agree, the way a lot of marketers do Facebook, it's not going to convert because social media channels are not just another channel for advertising. You can't push your marketing messages out to people in social media. You have to create really relevant, compelling, helpful content that answers their questions and solves their problems. Share that in social media and use that content to drive them back to your site for more information. And that's how you can achieve success in social sites. In terms of mobile, tablets are really kind of the leading mobile device. They've actually surpassed desktops and PCs, and it's actually been the fastest adoption of any technology that's been released in history. So in just under 3 years, tablets surpassed both desktop and notebook PCs. And in terms of adoption among older demographics, Pew just released this study just today that showed that among the 50 to 64 and 65 and plus audience, there's been tremendous growth over just the last year in adoption of tablets, and we can expect that to continue. So while their penetration is much smaller than, say, the 30 to 49-year-old population, it's still growing just as rapidly. So the implications for your website and your online efforts is you want to make sure that if you're thinking about doing things on your website and with your content, that it's responsive in terms of design, particularly for tablet devices. And you can see both for boomers and seniors and using their smartphones and tablets that they're looking for more information on these devices. They're even making purchases on them, especially tablet users, and have often visited websites of interest. So you want to make sure that your purchase funnel and your ability to sign up and connect and actually transact for your services is something that they can do, particularly on a tablet device going forward. So now let's talk about processes that you can maybe put into place and some best practices that you can use to really look at your current website and your competitors. And so where do you really start with all this? What's the process to go about kind of developing a plan that's going to be increasing your online conversions? Well, we'd like to suggest that a great place to start is to audit your current online presence, not just your website, but your content on your site, your social media presence, how you're buying digital advertising, all of the things that you're doing online. Really audit them and look at the performance that you're getting from them. So we're going to suggest a process for you to kind of do that. And one of the first places you could start is your keyword optimization and your search optimization. So as by way of example here, we typed in a search query into Google for California Medicare Advantage plans, which is a common search that somebody would do if they lived in a state like California and they were looking for plan information if they were new to the market or if they were needing to switch plans. And you can see the search engine result page for that query here, the first page results. And you'll note that the descriptions are really important, and the companies that are ranking highly on these search and paid results have Medicare Advantage or Medicare Advantage plans in their descriptions. So you want to make sure if you're buying ads, that you're buying ads around those keywords that people are looking for, obviously, but you also want to make sure that in your paid, in your organic search results and your metadata on your site, you're optimizing around those keywords that people are going to be using when they're in the searching stage for new plan information. Second of all here, you see the paid search area and how in the paid search area you've got, I'm sorry, kind of missed that slide there. I'm going to go on. This first area up here is paid search in this beige area, and that attracts about 6% of all clicks online. But you really want to be ranking in the organic area because 94% of all clicks are occurring organically. And as you can see over here, the first position in the insurance industry gets 64% of all the clicks. So this company right here is going to get 64% of all the click-throughs organically, and the next one gets only 12, and the next 5, and it drops off precipitously after that. And if you're on the second, third, or fourth page, good luck. So the goal of all your keyword research and your search engine optimization is to show up in this first couple of organic places. And by way of example, this is a company that is an aggregator of Medicare Advantage plan information, and they show up in the first organic position for a lot of search results for Medicare Advantage plans by the state. And my point in saying this is this may be a competitor of yours, and you may not know it because they're an online competitor. They're not a traditional competitor that you would think of, but they're really competing with you for search results. So in this research process around keywords and what shows up when you type in those keywords, you're going to get a good sense of who your true online competitors are. The next thing to look at is who is currently coming to your website. And so you can use a tool like Quantcast to get a good sense of the demographics of your site. This is important in terms of site design because if a lot of African Americans or Hispanics are coming to your site, for example, then you want to make sure you have content in Spanish language, or you want to make sure you're showing visuals that can be relatable to a certain ethnic audience. And then next thing is you want to understand what's bringing people to your website as well. So we've talked about keywords quite a bit, doing the keyword research. You can look at who's coming. Are there a lot of people in Google Analytics, for example? You can see what is coming to your website through search traffic, what's coming directly. Those are people directly typing in your company's name. What about referring sites where traffic is being sent to you by another website, a blogger, or a media site, for example? And then there's your paid search efforts. So you want to understand where your current mix of traffic is coming from. What are they doing when they get to your site in terms of content? What about your social media presence and the inbound links that you have coming into your site? Are they powerful links? And right now Google has determined that links that are highly authoritative are more important than a lot of links coming into a website. So it used to be your site could rank very high if you had a lot of inbound links coming into it. And Google's Panda and Penguin algorithm changes over the last couple of years have really lowered the results of a lot of links, and they're now looking at quantity or quality over quantity. Also in Google Analytics, you can take a look at what are the actions that people are taking when they get to your site. Are they registering for seminars? Do you have goals set up in Google Analytics so you can track and make sure that you're actually harvesting leads and you're actually getting conversions out of your entire marketing effort? And we oftentimes find that clients have not set up their goals and conversion goals properly in Google Analytics or their analytics package. So that's something you might want to take a check at before you get into the AEP. Also in Google Analytics, you can see a flow of users through your site, so you can see where people begin to drop off and lose interest. And this is important in understanding if your content's relevant and if you've got calls to action that are driving people down through your purchase funnel. So you can take a look at the visitor flow, and that can be really important. Let's talk about usability for a minute, because it's not all just about the technical aspect of keyword research and content and Are we creating things that people want? But are we actually creating an experience that people are finding easy to use? And I'm not going to share this video today, but in the webinar you'll see a link to it, and you can just click on there and go watch this. And this video will make the point that when we're really close to something and we're paying close attention to something we're very familiar with, we oftentimes miss the real obvious things. So my point is that we all have attentional blindness, where oftentimes the things we're going to point out about usability are something that we don't even see because we're spending all our time designing that website, or we lived with that website for the last 2 years and we know everything that's on it. So we can't see some of the obvious things that need to be changed on it. So we'll give you a couple of things to think about now in terms of usability best practices. And the first one is this area of consistent interactions. And by that we're talking about links primarily. So if you have things on your website that are clickable and they're links, you want to make sure that you use a consistent way of communicating to the user, this is a link. So you can do that by underlining the links in blue. That doesn't work with everybody's website design, obviously, but you want to pick some kind of design convention that clearly indicates this is a link and this is not a link. And also helpful in this process is having links change color when you've already clicked on them, so the user can understand, oh, I already clicked that, I don't need to click that again. And we'll give you an example here of what we're talking about. So on this web page that you're looking at, if you can see my pointer, these red arrows are pointing to things that you would think are links, but they're actually not. So you kind of have to hover over that and you click on that and nothing happens, and that's how you discovered that that's not a link, and that's probably not a best practice. Whereas you can see here the green arrows are pointing to things on this page that actually were links. There's not that much to distinguish other than the color of the box, a link from a non-link. And then to mix things up even further, these purple arrows are pointing to two areas. One of these is a link and one of these isn't, which is just the same as this up here. So what they've done is they've really confused the user because they haven't clearly identified through the design or any kind of text treatment that this is something you can click and this is something that doesn't click. The next thing you want to look at in terms of usability is the whole area of scannability and readability. And here's a great example of a web page that's not very scannable or readable at all. So we looked at this earlier because this is that site that's an aggregator of Medicare Advantage information, and they're ranking highly in search. But nobody would ever go to this page to find out answers to questions. They're just ranking highly in search so they can then generate sales through Google AdSense, which are right here. So really this kind of a site could be a competitor with your search results. You might even be buying paid search and having your ads show up on here, which you would then be competing with your own search results for. But this site, not very readable at all. They're not going to win on a usability standpoint. And in fact, research shows that people read only about 28% of a web page. And they scan in a pattern that looks like an F. So you can see here, this is a heat map that shows, the red areas show where the majority of the eye track went. So from left to right and at the top of the page. This is why you always want your logo in the upper left part of a web page. Because if you put it over here, you can see it's in the coldest area of the page. People aren't even noticing who the company is that they're on a website for. And then you can see there's a pattern where it's an F pattern and it goes like this. And then as it goes down, it gets cooler and cooler in terms of the heat map. So what you need to do is think of your website as more like a billboard that people are looking at and scanning in 3 to 5 seconds, and it's less of a brochure online. And that has to have an impact on your design. So an example of having a scannability and readability is having really clear visual and messaging hierarchy. And although this is a nicely designed website, and we're not meaning to point anybody out and make fun of anybody, because this is a really nicely designed site, from a design perspective, it's a little over-designed because your eye doesn't really know where to go first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 visual blocks that are causing my eye to bounce around because they're all about the same size, so we're bouncing around from side to side. And I've got a question here I want to see if I can go back and answer. So we've got a question that is, how do we recommend using pay-per-click and Medicare Advantage? And we'll cover that at the end. So appreciate that question. I'm going to get to that in just a bit here. So what could be done on this site would be to simplify the navigation and the visual messaging by kind of eliminating some of these boxes and making it clear. Here's the first thing we want you to see. Here's the second thing we want you to see. And maybe this enroll now takes a little greater prominence than it does. So I won't read this to you because we're going to give you the slides afterwards. But one of the things I will point out is a couple of things here is there's a readability testing tool that is hyperlinked in the webinar slides that if you go to this tool and plug in your website, it'll give you a readability score for your current site and tell you kind of what grade you have, and then you'll see quickly some of the things that you could do to make changes. Another quick tip is to use bulleted lists and text formatting. Bulleted lists increase the readability of a site by 54%. So there's some other tips there that you'll be able to get in the slides. Next, we want to talk about persuasive design. So here's a great example of a site that we think is very well designed from a persuasion standpoint. And why do we say that? Well, because the navigation is simple at the top. You've got clear color blocks here and clear blocks of other things where you can, and it's clear what's clickable to us. It's highlighted in a different color. And then you've got a great visual there that's really relevant to a particular audience. So this is, they're packing a lot of information in the design of this site, but it's all organized very nicely. And we're imagining they have really good conversion out of their efforts here from their website. Another site that we think does a great job with persuasive design is this one, where they're using close-in pictures of faces, which has been shown to really activate the emotional centers of the brain. And it's amazing to us how many sites we see that deal with people, selling a product or service to people that do not use people on their website at all. And you get a very cold, very kind of sterile feeling to their whole business. But yet this is a very warm, inviting feel from the design standpoint. And again, all the things that they want you to see are very clear in terms of here's the first thing, the second thing, their contact information is very clear, and then the rest of the information is organized in a very nice fashion. So nice design on that. This site, very nice design as well, but another case where some of the aspects of the design are fighting because these images here draw my eye down to the bottom of the page. So this actually becomes a more prominent element on the page when really they want us to pay more attention to the navigation. So one thing that could be done real quickly to fix this would be to move the images at the top of the page and then have the navigation below that, so you're not fighting so hard from a user standpoint to go, well, where am I supposed to go? Where is what I'm looking for? And we're going to give you a list in the webinar slides of some of the most common usability mistakes that companies make in their websites. But clearly, just to touch on a few of these, a lot of it is not providing visual cues to an information hierarchy. We've already talked a lot about what's not clickable and what is clickable. Not showing the users where they are in the site, leaving breadcrumbs or some kind of other visual cues for where they've gone and where they've been, poor navigation links, and poor link titles. So the key takeaways for this whole audit process of your site and digital presence is you really want to walk away with an understanding of how many site visitors are really turning into leads and how many leads are converting to an enrollment, and which of all these things that we've talked about in terms of usability, of design, of just basic functions are not contributing to this or are contributing to this. What's a challenge that we're putting in our own way? Some tools that you can use, again, this will be in the slide presentation, but Google Analytics or some other analytics that has been installed on your site is really critical. There's some tools for local search and other search that you can use, like SEO Laws, Right Local. And then in terms of usability testing and heat mapping, you've got Crazy Egg, Userlytics, user testing. All of those are really important. If you haven't done a user test or a crazy egg test on your site, it's really important to do that, and they're not that expensive to see, how users are really interacting with the content on your site and on the pages on your site. The next step in the audit process is really looking at your online competition. And we want to understand what they're doing that's working, what we're not doing that we should be doing. And so we've given some examples here based on a search query that we did for Medicare Advantage plans in Minnesota. And one of the first companies to show up in that search result was Blue Cross Blue Shield in Minnesota. And so they've done a great job on a couple of fronts because they're doing a good job of optimizing their search engines and all their metadata to make sure they're showing up #1 on the search page. But in addition to that, they've got beautiful design to their website. So here's a great example of a site that's very, very well designed. Again, packing a lot of information in, but the navigation is easy to see. They're using human faces, so they're bringing in a lot of that emotion. The colors are bright. It's giving you a great warm feeling to this site and very friendly. So calls to action are clear. This is an exemplary site. And we've got another question from Beth who's asking, how complicated is it to make changes to my site? That's a great question, and there's not an easy answer to it because it's as complicated as your internal process is for getting changes made on your content management system. For some companies that have built their site in WordPress and the marketing team is comfortable going in and making changes themselves, that can be pretty easy. For other companies, the website sits in IT's hands and it requires an act of Congress to get a change made. So that's one of the challenges, is kind of understanding how do changes get made on your website, how easy to use is your content management system, how search engine friendly is your content management system, and then working through and negotiating solutions based on kind of what the tools are that you have to work with. Another great example in this Minnesota search that we did was Humana. They showed up second on the search result, and they have a very nicely designed site as well, totally different from the Blue Cross Blue Shield site. But again, they're bringing in the human element, so giving you a feeling of warmth and assurance. And you can see right there that the calls to action are shop for Medicare coverage, enter your zip code. And so they're making it very easy for a person to shop and find the information they need right away. So again, with your competitors, you want to understand how they're measuring up both on a keyword basis, on a content basis, from all the links that are coming into their site, as well as social media presence, and how active they are on social media and engaged they are with their audience in social media. Once you understand all of this, you're able now to do an analysis of the gaps between what you're delivering and what your competitors are doing, and what are kind of some of the low-hanging fruit changes that you can make immediately to increase your results. So now you're ready to develop your plan. And what we'd like to suggest now in the last kind of minutes of our webinar is 5 simple things that you can do right now to increase your online enrollments this fall. And before we do that, we'd like you to consider the entire digital marketing ecosystem. So a common problem that we're running into with a lot of the companies that we work with is they have several people internally. One person's managing social media, one person's managing paid search, another person's managing the website design and development, and somebody else is doing email marketing. And you've got all these different either internal stakeholders or external partners that are managing different parts of the digital ecosystem. And the problem is the consumer doesn't experience digital marketing communications in a siloed approach. They have a seamless, integrated interaction with every one of these digital touch points. And so if you're not integrated in terms of how you develop your entire strategy, your content plan, and then your marketing plan as a part of that, you're going to be delivering a very disconnected approach across all the digital touch points. So we always like to look at this as a whole, macro, from a strategic standpoint, and develop somebody's plan as a holistic plan that can really maximize every one of the digital touch points that they want to be using. So practical things you can do. 5 things we're going to give you real quickly that you can do, and then we want to leave some time for more questions here at the end. So the first thing that you can do immediately right now is start to create content and offers for people that are different stages of the buying process. So come fall enrollment, you're going to have people that are turning 65. They do that every month. But, you know, the fall enrollment period is the big push that everybody focuses on. So you're going to have a lot of people that will be signing up for Medicare Advantage for the first time. So they're going to be doing a lot of research. So you want to create content for those early stage information seekers. That could be testimonials, ebooks and guides, blog posts, white papers, all kinds of things that help people as they're just starting out on their journey to decide, well, what is Medicare Advantage? What kind of plan do I want to buy? Then you can create different kinds of content for people that are in more of the, well, okay, I'm going to buy this or that, and they've decided to switch from one plan to another. So you want to orient some content for switchers, why it might be time, maybe you want to do a guide on why it might be time to switch to a new Medicare Advantage plan. And then finally, there's people that are at the bottom of the funnel, and they're just ready to enroll in a new plan now. So creating different content and offers for people at those different stages can be really critical. Testimonials is a great thing to use here, especially rich content testimonials like videos, where people can hear other people their age, so it's much more relevant to them. And instead of coming from you as a company, these people who are average consumer are telling them, this is what I found when I did my research, and I really enjoy this plan because of these reasons. So that can be very persuasive, and you're leveraging social proof in your marketing communications. This is a great thing to share on social media as well. Other people say, you know, this is what they say about our plan, and this is why they recommend our plan, instead of us saying it as marketers. The next thing you can do immediately is start to add landing pages to your website for the different content and offers you're creating. So rather than asking people to weed through pages and pages and pages of your website or trying to get those things to rank in search, you can actually use those landing pages and send people there through paid search campaigns, through social media, and even organic search results can be optimized against these. Once they go to the landing page, you can gather lead information, have them sign up for an email newsletter, or give their lead information and then be able to download an ebook or a fact sheet or enroll in a seminar or something like that. And if you're going to do content and landing pages, you want to make sure that you're creating the correct titles for these things. And a title can make a world of difference. So here on screen you're seeing an example of the same piece of content that was just titled differently, and it got more than 10 times the people, or about 10 times the amount of people downloading the content with one title versus another. So what we're talking about here is really creating things that really appeal to people and help them in the deselection process. So the world is full of choices. There's hundreds of Medicare Advantage plans in your state. How do people choose between all the different available plans? Well, you want to create titles of content that help them deselect. So that's something like creating content around the 5 things you need to know about Medicare Advantage plans, or the here's 10 tips to help you pick the best Medicare Advantage plan. Those kinds of titles are great for search engine optimization, and they're great for social media content sharing as well. So we've got another question where somebody's asking, how do I choose the right titles? And that's a great question, and that's why that search engine research, the SEO research in the beginning is really important to find out not only what kinds of content people are looking for on a subject matter basis, but then you're using those titles in your content along with these best practices of like the 5 tips, the best things, 3 things you need to know. People love lists. And then you can also create landing pages that A/B split test that. So you choose, you know, to send half of your audience to a page with one title and half you showing with another, and seeing which ones respond the best in terms of the title. So you should always be testing. The 4th thing that we'd like you to think about is that you should use thank you pages for additional calls to action. So once somebody does download some content, you have an additional opportunity to thank them then and give them an additional call to action with a thank you page. And then finally, we want you to think about matching your landing page headline to the corresponding call to action. So you don't want to have a landing page that's titled one thing and your call to action is for something totally unrelated, because that just makes people kind of scratch their head and go, what was this? I'm not sure. So there's 5 practical things that you can do right now to be changing your online enrollment. And again, those will be in the slide deck that you will receive later in the week. And now what we're going to do is I'm going to scan back through the questions, but if you have any additional questions, feel free to ask those now, and I'll try to answer those as quickly as I can. And I'm going to pause here for a second while I'm reading. And we've got a question from someone on how do we recommend using pay-per-click? Well, one of the things that we would do around pay-per-click is actually use engaging and compelling content in a paid search campaign. We've seen a lot of success rather than just sending people to giving them a text ad around enroll for your Medicare Advantage plan right now, and you send them to a landing page where they can enroll. You might want to create different paid search offers around the 5 things you need to know about signing up for a new Medicare Advantage plan, or the changes that have occurred in Medicare Advantage over the last year, and actually send people to a video landing page that has a quick video that explains that to people, and they can download an ebook or a guide on that as well. And you can see your paid search efforts increase exponentially by using content rather than just using a plain text ad and sending somebody to a website to sign up for something. So that's a good question. I'll look for another question here. And we don't have any other questions at this time. So where do you go from here? Because this is a lot of information to digest, and hopefully you found a couple of things, or it's giving you some thoughts about some things that you can do right now to make some improvements. And again, we'll send you our guide at the conclusion of today so that you can actually evaluate your own website with a lot of things that we talked about today and some others, and go through that with your web designer or your internal team, or call us if you need help with that, and really look at some things that you can do right now to make some changes. If you'd like a free online marketing assessment report of how you're stacking up against your competitors in some key areas, we're happy to provide that for you. And again, our contact information there is on the screen, as well as we'll send it via email with the guide that we're sending out today. And you can always contact us by going to our website, Damon3, and finding our contact information on there as well. And we want to thank everybody for participating today. We're going to leave you a little bit early, so we've been about 45 minutes in, and appreciate you taking some time out of your day, and we'd look forward to any feedback you'd like to give us. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much. Huh.